Hey there, folks. I've been planning my 2025 kokanee fishing adventures for the spring and summer, and it got me thinking. I noticed that most of the places I'm going to chase big kokanee, that is kokanee in excess of 18 inches, are outside the state of Washington. So it got me thinking, why is that? Why am I needing to drive so far to find big kokanee? And I think a lot of it has to do with how the state of Washington manages kokanee fisheries. So I just thought I'd go through a list of 4 things I think that the state of Washington could do to improve its kokanee fisheries. And first and foremost is they need to stop overstocking their kokanee fisheries. It drives me absolutely bonkers how many fish they dump into our lakes, and we end up with these perpetually stunted kokanee fisheries. So, for example, Merwin gets almost 100,000 kokanee planted in it every year, and it's been on the small side now for several years. You think they might dial back on that. I even know that I know it's not a major contribution, but they do have some wild spawning too in that lake. Deep Lake in Grant County, the fish there have been small since like the dawn of time. I feel like ever since I've fished that lake, they've been small. They've been putting like 13,000, 14,000 fish in there every year. I did see for 2025 they're going to go from 13 to 8. I would personally prefer to see that go to like 5 or 6, really dial it down, ratchet it down. Let's get some big kokanee in there. Another one that I know a lot of my followers fish is Samish Lake. And that thing gets like 70,000, 70,000, and they're like little dinks. Like, go half that, double the size, right? I mean, the crazy thing is I can go to BC where the limit's 5 kokanee. I can catch 5 kokanee there. They're going to be like 18 inches. And I'll get more meat off of those 5 fish than I'll get off of 10 fish at Deep Lake. It's crazy. So just stop with the overstocking. I'm not saying they overstock everywhere. There's actually some lakes they don't overstock, and those fisheries tend to be better. The only ones I know where they overstock and they get decent size is because there's either predators there that eat them, or there's such intense harvest pressure that a lot of those fish get yanked out of the lake fairly early on, and that releases the competition. The intra-specific competition, that's competition within species. Number 2 is I absolutely hate Washington's rules simplification. So now all kokanee lakes have a 10 fish limit. And that is just a stupid way to approach any fishery, is just to apply the sledgehammer technique to management. For the sake of simplicity, Oregon, Idaho, they both have variable kokanee limits depending on the fishery. So, they have the same issues that we face in Washington State, where they have some lakes where there's natural reproduction, and they get way too many kokanee, so they get super stunted. So in both of those states, there's lakes with 15, 20, 25 limit kokanee because there's too many darn kokanee in the lakes. But in Washington State, everything's just 10, which is stupid. We really need to go back to maximizing opportunity and managing our fisheries correctly by just having variable limits. Like Chelan should probably have a 15 fish limit. Yale should probably have a 20, 25 fish limit. Merwin probably 15. And then I know some smaller lakes in the Okanagan Highlands that probably should just have 5 because they get over harvested. So, yeah, I think it's so stupid to just have 10 everywhere. That's dumb. The only place where I've been where there's like a blanket of just 5, and that's in BC, but I think BC manages their kokanee fisheries better than anybody else in the entire world, because I can go to BC and pretty much 90% of the lakes that I fish are going to be like 16 to 20 plus inch kokanee. It's ridiculous. Their fish are so much healthier, fatter. All you need is 5. It's like 5 meals just catching 5. It's crazy. So yeah, the 10 fish limit is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in Washington. I did petition the committee to change Yale's limit back to its previous 16. However, after I petitioned WDFW, I got a call from the regional fisheries biologist, and he explained to me that in the near future they're looking at restoring anadromous, coho, and steelhead runs into Yale Reservoir, and they're going to be doing a surface collecting smolt system very similar to Swift up above. That it's very likely that there's not going to be a lot of appetite for increasing the number of potentially juvenile salmon or steelhead being handled by increasing the kokanee limit on Yale, which actually makes sense to me. So that doesn't look like it's going to happen in the near future because of the constraints of sort of layering a kokanee fishery on top of an anadromous salmon steelhead fishery, which can be very challenging from a management perspective. At least it's not going to go the way that a lot of the kokanee fisheries are in the Willamette, where they're managed by Army Corps and draining them down and basically destroying them. So it is what it is. Another thing I would really like to see, so like kokanee distribution in Washington State is like west side, like mostly like southwest, Seattle, Olympic Peninsula a little bit, and then across the north. So you get like Okanagan Highlands, and you get like northeast Washington. But then like the entire like southeast Columbia Basin is just like devoid of kokanee. Like if you live in Pullman or the Tri-Cities, you're probably driving to like Lake Wallowa, or you're going over into Idaho to fish kokanee. But I really think like there's some opportunity to put some kokanee in lakes like below Potholes, Upper Goose Lake, Soda Lake. They're big, deep lakes that could potentially hold kokanee. I mean, kokanee are not that hard to produce. At the very minimum, at least, you'd be feeding the trout and walleye that are in those lakes and providing a chance at kokanee fishing for people in the Tri-Cities. I think it's worth trying. And this sort of segues into kokanee opportunity. So like in BC, like ice fishing for kokanee is a huge deal. And it's not really a huge deal in Washington, although it should be. But we have very limited opportunities to ice fish for kokanee because most of our lakes in eastern Washington closed for the winter, especially those that are stocked with kokanee, because of the way they manage trout primarily. And they put trout in the fall, and they want them to grow over the winter and then be harvestable in the spring or summer of the following year. So most of our kokanee fisheries are good ones that freeze over regularly are closed, aside from Bonaparte. I thought Curlew was going to be up and coming, and then they showed that they stopped planting kokanee in Curlew, but then they restarted planting it, or it looks like they're going to in 2025. At least that's what it says. I never really know what to believe in the hatchery reports because I've inquired, and a lot of times it's just because the local fish bio, which I won't name, though I'd love to see him fired, he is really bad at submitting the data that's for plants, and so sometimes it just gets omitted even though the planting actually happened. But so it looks like maybe Curlew, but I mean there are some other lakes that would be really great to see open in winter. That would be great opportunities for kokanee. I'm thinking like Spectacle Lake is an obvious and easy one. If they could get the kokanee fishery back on its feet at Patterson, that would be nice. So yeah, I would just like to see some of our closed lakes like be open in the winter for kokanee. And if you're that concerned about rainbow trout, then just close it to rainbow trout and just open it to only kokanee in the winter. We can do that, right? Like, just set the rules and enforce the rules. It's not that hard. Anyways, I would love to hear what your thoughts are on ways that we could improve kokanee fisheries in Washington State. Let me know in the comment section below. I'll see you next time. Just remember, fish smarter, not harder.